Howdy y'all, welcome back to Rat's Nest Hot Rods. We're going to do a comparison between Slick Sand and Featherfill G2. I see a lot of questions about this. I in fact had the same question, so I figured I'd buy a can and shoot it and see what the differences are. Slick Sand, as you can see there, is a extremely high build. Featherfill, you're going to see here, is high build. I would call it like a super high build. I see a lot of people complaining that it sands like concrete. Both of these sand exactly the same. They sand fairly easily, but they're not as easy as like a urethane high build. So keep that in mind. And they're also not as easy as sanding body filler like an Evercoat Rage Gold or something like that. Slick Sand and Featherfill are harder to sand than both of those, but if you're a grown-ass man or woman, I think you can handle it. And the advantages that it has is it's a liquid sprayable body filler. You get complete coverage, and it does not shrink. That's a good part about it. So like I said, or maybe I didn't say earlier, I've never shot Slick Sand before. I've seen the questions asked, and I figured I'd buy a gallon and shoot it with the Featherfill. So I'm going to shoot 2 quarts of Featherfill and then 2 quarts of Slick Sand, and we'll kind of talk about the differences there. A few tips while we're doing the mixing here is when you're pouring either one of these out of the can, pour it through a filter before it goes into your cup, because you will pull a lot of crap out of it, especially in the Slick Sand. Then pour it in your gun. Well, of course, mix the activator in, then pour it in your gun. And when you pour it in your gun, be ready to shoot. You can see the Cadillac here. The earlier videos showed the blocking process of that first 3 coats of Featherfill, and now we're gonna go on it right here. This is the Featherfill G2. I'm used to spraying it. Works very well, and we'll spray out the whole car real quick with this, and get into shooting some of the Slick Sand and showing the comparisons, also showing the filter after you've poured Slick Sand through it before mixing it. So again, I don't filter it after I've put the hardener in, but I do filter it before it goes into the mixing cup. I'm using an Iwata Airgunsa 3mm tip, and that's my preferred gun for any of these high poly primers, and then sometimes even the high build urethane. I'll put it on there knowing that it's going to shrink back if I want to put it on there really extra heavy. Goes on smooth. As far as the Featherfill, I have no issue shooting it through a 3.0. I don't reduce it. Pour it out of the can through the filter, put the activator in, and then get to spraying. A few other things you may notice is there's some fresh black epoxy primer on any of the areas where I hit the metal. On the car, you need to do that. The Slick Sand and the Featherfill, I think the guideline says no more direct metal contact larger than 1 square inch. I don't like taking a chance with something like that, so I mix up a little epoxy primer every time and then go around and hit any of the bare metal spots, anything that maybe I added body filler on to kind of lock that down before this goes on. And I think that gives me some additional peace of mind, and makes for getting a nice clean coat going down there. One other thing you'll see here is me tripping and falling all over this stupid roof plank that I've got laid there. Not the best pre-planning. So when you do this, move those out of the way before you load it in your gun. Like I said, once you mix that stuff in your gun, you got to be rolling, and every time you stop spraying to let a coat dry, you need to thoroughly clean the gun out, or your gun will be garbage. It will turn to concrete in there very quickly. This is we're shooting this, and it's probably 65 degrees in the shop. Nice Washington day, so it gives me a little extra time to work on this stuff and not worry about it curing up too much. But that being said, you do have to be on top of getting your cleanings done. 1 quart of slick sand, or I should say feather fill at this point, does about, I would say, if we're looking at this car here, it does 2 sail panels and 1.5 rear quarters. So especially with a 3mm tip, you're gonna blow through this stuff really quick. Another thing to do that is a good idea that I like doing is mixing, or not mixing, but pouring out, measuring out 3 to 4 quarts, whatever it's going to take to do 1 coat on your car. Don't put the activator in except for the one that you're shooting. If you mix activator in all of them, then by the time you get to that last one, it's going to be like pudding, and you won't be able to shoot it. I've seen folks make that mistake on other YouTube videos. So, but having everything set out, having your little vials or tubes full of activator ready at the go there, makes it a lot easier. You can restrain it if you want to. You shouldn't have to, but throw the activator in, dump it in the cup, and then get right back over to the car. I can't stress enough that you got to move quickly with this. It's not so much that you need to be so stressed out about it that you're making mistakes, because I know how that goes, and kind of run into that here because of these damn planks, and you'll see a little bit of that. We're still spraying the feather fill at this point, and we'll be switching to that slick sand shortly. The difference between slick sand and feather fill is negligible on the sanding side, and I don't know, the amount of filling, I don't know if it's worth it. Slick sand costs a little bit more. It's more viscous. It goes on heavier. It's more orange peel. Is a lot chunkier out of the can. So I think I won't be shooting slick sand again in the future. I'm just going to stick with the feather fill G2. I seem to be able to lay that down nice and smooth, and kind of predict timing and getting things done that way. That being said, neither one of them are hard to work with, and the end result is exactly the same once you've sanded everything down and gotten it ready for a urethane high build primer. So don't let that deter you. I know that feather fill was originally made, I believe, for going on fiberglass, and but they both work very well on these old steel cars too. So we're going to wrap up with the feather fill here, and I'm just going to spray out what I have left in the pot. And then one nice thing about having a scissor lift with this stuff, and then if you're running one of these 3M pappers like I am for my respirator, is you can move the car up and down. When you have that papper hanging there off your ass, it tends to hit everything if you position your car too close to the shelf. But moving the car up and down on a scissor lift like this, or any lift while you're painting, is pretty sweet. See the frustration here, boys? Taking your time in between filling the pot is a good idea. That way you can have all this stuff kind of planned out. Generally I do that. There you can see we lifted the car up a little bit so that we can have better access to the bottom and keep me from getting pissed off. This is slick sand going down, and I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, you can tell from the video here. It is going on thicker. I'm moving about the same speed, maybe a little bit slower. I like to get that first coat down and then go hammer on the second one. But if you look at the gloss in the from the lighting, you can see that that stuff is a little bit thicker going on. So I sprayed this one out, and the mistake that I made was I did not filter it before I put it into the mixing cup like I've been preaching to you guys, and it shot a whole bunch of slick sand boogers all over this thing, which is not the biggest deal in the world. You're going to sand it out, right? And that's why you'll see here shortly with a filter, I pre-filter it, and then I'll show you all the goop that comes out of it. But good thing about a 3mm tip is you can shoot some heavy boogers out of that thing. So I did get that action going on here. My initial impression of it when I was shooting it was, yeah, I don't like this stuff. But I made the mistake of not filtering it. So don't make that mistake, and you'll be happy with it. So we'll run around the car and get this sprayed on. I would say it goes on if feather fill, if you're putting it down and it was going on, let's say, just for shits and giggles, you're putting it on, and this is not realistic. You're putting it on, and feather fill is a 1/16 of an inch. I would say that, or if feather fill is a 1/16 of an inch, then your slick sand would go down and not quite be 1/8 of an inch. It's probably 150% of the coverage of what you would get with the feather fill G2. So I don't know if it's that much difference. That's the higher cost, I guess, is the thickness in a gallon. But man, it really lays down on the panel quick, and you go through it super quick. But you can see in the video that it is showing up quite a bit thicker than the feather fill when it went down. What other tips can I give you? I do spray this at a fairly high pressure. It's probably 45 to 50 psi at this gun. The air gun's a high pressure. Oh, check this out. Here's the filter. There's the amount of junk that comes out of the can after you've mixed it really well. So that's the importance of running it through the strainer filter before it goes into your gun. So this one will go down a lot easier. I forget what tips I was given there, but oh well, we're going to keep going. I'm trying to do this video like the gunman does. I don't know how he can possibly talk through these whole videos, but that is the key there, is getting that filter done on this stuff straight out of the gallon can. I know I've said that a million times, but yeah, that's important. Anyway, back to high pressure, 45 to 50 psi with this air gun. So it says the max psi is 70, which is crazy high, and I've shot using this gun up to about 60 psi, and it works good. It doesn't have a whole lot of overspray because the stuff is so thick, but I do like these guns, these air guns. If you're looking at purchasing one, I have the other set that has the 1.3, I think a 1.5 and a 1.8 tip in it, and I use that for high build urethane primer and then cheaper paint jobs. That thing works awesome. I also have the Finish Line, the DeBilbus Finish Line FL4. That's kind of the same setup with the same tips on the the 1.3, the 1.5, the 1.8, and I can't stand that gun in comparison to these Iwatas. I think the fit and finish is way better. Less goofy mistakes with these style guns, and they're cheaper, so I use them for any kind of primer as opposed to using some of the nicer guns. I have an LPH 400 and then a SATA Minijet 4400 that I won from Sprayway a while back. He's got a big YouTube channel on here and happened to win that in one of his raffles, and you'll see that in an upcoming video where I spray a 2017 Harley Davidson Road Glide, and that is a sweet gun. But like I said, for the primers and single stage and the kind of the cheaper paint jobs, these Iwata air guns are awesome. There you go, seeing it go down. This is the slick sand going down on the roof, and it's nice and thick, nice and glossy. It's funny watching it in the video. I can kind of see the difference better than I could when I was laying it down. If I was going to recommend one of these two to you, I would just go with the Featherfield G2 and spray an extra coat. It's going to cost you the same in the end, and I think it's a little easier to shoot. I do want to take a moment and thank everybody for the subscriptions. It has, I think I'm gaining, 1 or 2 a day, which is great. And I know it's been a couple months since I put up a video, but we've been cranking out a ton of work in the shop for several of the friends through the summertime, and I'll get back to posting these videos up. You'll see, what are we doing here? We did, like I said, we did the Harley. We're going to rewire an old Honda, 82 Honda, with a Moto Gadget computer system, solid state system, which is really cool. That'll be coming up shortly, and then I'll be doing a video on lowering a 1950 Ford shoebox, two-door sedan that I picked up a little bit ago, and so that should be a pretty cool video, and we'll do some other product demos and tools and things like that. I think the next video you'll see from, and we'll tease that here in a second, is doing the, we shaved the firewall in this Cadillac, and it's a lot of work, so I'm going to talk to you about whether you should shave your firewall or not. The end result will be great, but block sanding it and all the metal work that goes into it is a ton of work, and I don't know that it's going to be quite worth the investment in time. And here it is right here. We're not going to show the metal work or anything, but we are going to get to block sanding that slick sand and the feather fill off. We'll be seeing that shortly. We're also going to include that one. We're going to get those body lines, the big long body lines on the rear quarters. So we're going to start taping those off and getting those nice and straight, and then we'll run right into urethane high build for the next 3-4 coats on this car, and then we're going to block it again, and then we're going to urethane high build again with 3-4 coats and block out it again. Then we're going to do the mock assembly on the Cadillac. I haven't gotten to that in reality. This footage was taken probably 3 months ago, so we'll throw the Harley and the other stuff in its place. Anyway, thanks for watching and subscribing and all the comments, guys. I will see you in the near future. Peace and grease, sucker.